Get ready for the kickoff of Coach Red and Company. An inside look at high school athletics like you've never heard before. Hosted by veteran coaches Red Johnston and Shane Huygens. This podcast dives deep into the world of high school sports, exploring much more than scores and stats. Whether you're a coach, a parent, student athlete, or fan, Coach Red and Company is your go-to podcast for the developments beyond the X's and O's of high school sports. Red and Shane are tackling the big topics like NIL, recruiting, team dynamics, and even the dollars and cents behind the game, such as budgets, facilities, and coaching salaries. Let's talk high school sports. Real, raw, and unfiltered. This is Coach Red and Company. Touchdown!
Hey everybody, welcome back to Coach Red and Company, where we take an inside look at high school athletics. Here we are with episode 3, Sports Performance. We're excited today. We have 3 amazing interviews and a 4th one from a young man who basically did sports performance throughout his high school, made it to college, and now he's getting ready to go to the Canadian Football League. So we'll share a lot of those clips. You can find the full episode of all those interviews on our YouTube page as well. So first of all, we want to welcome our co-host, Coach Shane. How you doing today, Coach?
Doing well, Coach Red. Oh, man. Can we hear that some more? Pump it up, pump it up.
There we go.
Hey, great to be back. Was in Iowa over the weekend, so you're going to bear with me a little bit. It was like -3 one day, and then we had a heated up a lot, got to like 17.
Ooh,
so got a little cold in me, but hey, everyone out there watching, I just want to make sure we give major props to Coach Red. Last week we had 2 amazing coaches on football, baseball. This week he lined up 3 big-time trainers from the Central Florida area. You know, went out there, sat down with them. Red's putting in a lot of work here to give you guys a lot of information. So, Red, do me a favor. Hit that little applause button for Coach Red. Raise the roof. Raise the roof.
You know, a buddy of mine told me, use your network. Right. And,
you're doing it.
I've been blessed, as coaches, we talk to a lot of people. We, work with a lot of people. And with my daughter's volleyball experience, we've actually used all 3 of these guys at different stages and different clubs that we've been at. So we will definitely get into that here in a second. But these 3 guys that I interviewed, young gentleman by the name of Vidal Morjan, who's at our volleyball club, Game Point. He does all the sports performance stuff for all the girls that want to attend. And he also does a lot of basketball stuff during the day in the morning, while our kids are at school. So he's unbelievable. He's down here on the south end of Orlando. We also have Trevor T.A. Two Claps Anderson out on the west side in Ocoee with Apex Fitness. Phenomenal young man, known him for probably 25, 28 years, back when he was going to UCF and doing valet parking downtown. We used to go down, we're out there dancing and having a good time partying, and he's running quarter-mile sprints, picking up people's cars, getting in shape. And, at 45, 48 years old, I forget what he said he was, phenomenal shape. But then we also have Hunter Wood from the Athlete Factory up in Altamont Springs. My girls used to go to Top Select Volleyball Club up in Maitland, so it was a couple miles away. Got some great info about him. So I took my daughters there, had a phenomenal job. Now this guy, has done a lot with football players. He was a strength and conditioning coach at Apopka. We're going to have an interview with one of his graduates who's actually still there after the interview we did with him. He went through a workout. Young man, Will Barnes, who's getting ready to go to the CFL. He also has Jalen Carter as one of his former students who's actually will be playing in the Super Bowl here in about a little over a week with the Philadelphia Eagles. So he's had a number of different players. All 3 of these guys, Shane, that I just admire because of their desire to get better at their craft. They've gotten exercise science degrees from college. TA has CSCS behind his name, his new last name, as he likes to say.
Right.
Certified strength and conditioning specialist. So, these guys are the best of the best, and that's my opinion. And I know a lot of other people think the same thing about these guys. And, I talk about it in the full interview with them, just how much I really appreciate guys that want to get better at their craft. They're not on TikTok and YouTube just finding some, workout or some drill and trying to sell it and make a name for themselves. These guys are bona fide, legit sports performance trainers. So if you need it, we'll also have on the YouTube page and their videos, we'll have how you can get in touch with each one of those young men, and look forward to it. So,
and saying that, Coach Red, with my son, I know TA quite well as well as you do. My son started going to see TA when he was maybe 11, 12, 13. TA actually helped me out a little bit at 4A Sports Academy, so I know him very well. And just to let people know, my son trained a little bit at D1 Sports, and he also saw a gentleman, Ben De La Cruz, out in Oviedo, who works with a lot of baseball and a lot of football players. As he played football, I think, at Eastern Kentucky. He's from, I believe, Pine Ridge, but he's definitely up in that area. So me and you, we've seen some different people as far as trainers. We've seen some different techniques. So I think it's a good thing for us to kind of share with parents and also share with players that maybe are looking for a sports performance program to jump into.
Yeah. And, with these guys, whether it's females or males, they understand the difference. They understand that you can't just come up with one training curriculum and say, okay, here's how we're going to do everybody. Everybody's different. We could play the same sport, but we're different. Our bodies are different, how we do different things. You may do one thing better than I do, so I got to work on that to get better. You got to work on other things that I do well. So, and TA really breaks it down.
Absolutely.
Today, he's going to talk a little bit about the differences in men and women and how their bodies are different, even certain times of the month. Ladies, bodies changes. So, that was all amazing stuff that I didn't know, that I learned from doing this interview. So,
and you got daughters,
and I have 2 daughters. Yeah. And so, in saying that, I wanted to take them to people that understood volleyball players, specifically, obviously, because mine played volleyball. But they had softball players at the Athlete Factory. So there was a lot of young ladies that would work out at the 3 different places. Obviously, Vidal, he does nothing but volleyball in the afternoons and evenings because that's our club and that's our practice times. But, during the morning, he is working out with basketball players. He does lacrosse, baseball, boxing, MMA. He does fencing. He's got a couple of fencing guys.
Yeah, I heard that on the interview.
With him. So, that's obviously a different technique, that explosion, that jab. I'm sure boxing's kind of maybe some similar movement, just, with that quick jab and fast twitch muscles.
Right.
So it was really interesting talking to these guys. Spent probably 30, 40 minutes with each one of them, talking to them. And it was really great to just have those conversations and to gain more knowledge in what we do. And so, that's why we're here today, to just kind of provide that as much as we can for people. Just get that information out there, whether you use these 3 guys or you go find somebody else. Make sure that they know what they're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Make 100%. Sure that, they've had background, whether it's a college degree, they've got some kind of letters or certifications behind their names that they stand on, that they are always seeking to learn and grow as a sports performance specialist. And that's all I, talk about. I don't want, my cousin played football, he can get me right. You may get a little bit benefit here and there.
Just because you're working out in general.
Right. So, we can talk about, Shane, sports performance, talk about, what you think it is, or, in the last 10, 15 years in high school. When I coached at Cypress Creek, I had just spent a year at Florida State and watched a lot of the stuff we did. We had a speed ladder that we used at Florida State almost every day. We had a young man by the name of Nigel Big Jelly Dixon.
He was huge.
Edgewater High School here in Orlando. He was a big boy at the time. He was 6'9", 429 pounds. And he could go through that ladder like Fred Astaire for my older group watching. This kid had some phenomenal footwork that I haven't seen in a lot of little guys. Guards didn't have as good a footwork as this guy did. And so we did that. We did a lot of hurdles, jump rope. And so I brought that back to the high school when I got my head coaching job.
Absolutely.
At Cypress Creek. We do that for about 15 minutes before practice every day. And I'm like, okay, that's sports performance, right? In the off season, we'd be in the weight room and in groups, and we'd rotate. And, you think as a coach, you get a little knowledge from here or there, talk to the football guys or, wrestling coach or some guys that have some bigger guys. And, hey, what's some good stuff that we could be doing? And when you try to do that, combined with breaking down film, scouting opponents, practice planning, all that stuff.
You ain't got enough time.
You don't have enough time, and you're cheating the kids in a sense. You're trying to give them the best.
It's not your expertise level, Red. It's not your expertise level. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that goes for a majority of high school coaches out there. We try to do the best we can, get them bigger, stronger, faster. But when you have guys like this that all they do is sports performance, and if a kid can go for an hour, usually that's what workouts are, for an hour, 2-3 days a week. A lot of great things can happen, and you'll hear Vidal say, if you just stack days, one after another. So what kind of sports performance background have you had, Shane, or you've worked with, in your coaching career?
Yeah, well, Red, it's like you said. I mean, me and you grew up in an era where, the head coach kind of did it all. You might have had your assistant coach help a little bit here and there. Hey, everyone out there, me and Red are old enough to actually remember when there wasn't any www dot. Now, if you don't know what that is called the internet. So we actually had to do research, open up encyclopedias. You had to talk to people. You had to figure out, you had to buy books. Oh my Lord. You had to go to a bookstore and buy a book. I think I got one in my trunk. Well, in my old trunk, it was a plyometric exercise that UCLA did.
Yep.
And we did stuff like that. We looked online. We downloaded Bigger, Faster, Stronger, like you said, where they did tons of squats, bench press, deadlifts, everyone. And you know what? See, the dot drill, that's still something that everyone still does. The ladder, everyone still does that. It's just that now sports performance was around when we grew up. It definitely was around, but it wasn't used by high school kids. It was used by Olympians. Carl Lewis in '84. I'm pretty sure his trainer probably knew a little bit more than being Big Red did in 1998. But it didn't trickle down. Like the trickle down effect, it took a while. And now it's become more of a mainstream. All those trainers are trickling down to our high school kids as well. So now they've got skills trainers in almost every sport. And now they have sports performance in pretty much every sport. And I'm not saying what we did was wrong, because I think what we did, the lifts we were doing, kids were getting bigger, faster, stronger.
Right.
But are they getting bigger, faster, stronger, developing athleticism like they are today? Probably not, because we weren't CSCI. We weren't any of those letters behind our name. We were strictly like, hey, I talked to Red. I went to his house on Sunday. He said they've been doing this lift. They love it. Red got that from his guy at Kansas who said it's great, or, whatever. And we hodgepodge it together. We came up with a program. And it's kind of like you said, I always felt like this. If a kid's sitting at home on the couch, or if he's in the weight room with us back in '95, the kid in the weight room is going to get stronger. But now it's Trevor Anderson and Hunter and those guys and Vidal. Oh, a whole different level nowadays than what me and you did in the past.
Yeah. And, you did the best you can with what you have, and just the way everything is just developed. And I think now more than ever, with the specialization of sports, a sports performance trainer, skill development trainers are so important in the development of athletes. And you're always trying to give your kid an advantage. And
always
now, with the way things are going at the college level, and potentially going to 5 years of eligibility and not counting the 2 years of junior college. And so your kid could go to prep school for a year, JUCO for 2 years, and then play 5 years. The kid's 25, 30 years old. So for high school kids, and I read an article in the Orlando Sentinel looking at it this weekend about football guys. They had a big kind of combine training at Boone High School this past weekend.
Okay.
And the quarterback from TFA, who's really good, threw for, I think, over 2,400 yards this past year, still doesn't have a school to go to. A couple other guys that were top probably 100 in Central Florida that the Sentinel doesn't have a school to go to because the colleges are looking to go into the portal. They're looking to get college transfers. So those guys have developed their bodies. They're older. And just with the maturation process, you're going to get, bigger and stronger. So kids have really got to do things these days through sports performance, skill development, and getting out there and training to set themselves up to hopefully get recruited. So we'll see where it all goes. It's definitely going to be interesting where it all goes here in the future. But, sports performance probably in the last, I'd say 10 years has really exploded. Each one of the trainers that we talked to said the same thing, and they talked about how, they can turn a kid that's not very athletic into a pretty good athlete. But the key ingredient that they all said that the kid needed to do that was commitment and stacking those days every day. Come in with a great attitude.
Hard work.
Work hard.
If they weren't going to work hard, it wasn't going to make a difference.
Yeah, and each one of them talked about pushing kids to get better. And parents have to understand they can't get in the way of those kids and the coaches pushing them to get better. The 3 guys I interviewed, you won't have a problem with them doing anything that's going to hurt your child. Those guys are quality individuals, quality young men. They have sons and daughters of their own. Mm-hmm. I know Connor's got 2 young men that are in their teens playing football. TA's got 1 in college, 1 in 8th grade. Badal doesn't have any yet. But, he understands what it takes to be good. So, we're going to talk about the importance of sports performance. I asked Badal why sports performance was so important these days. So let's take a listen to see what he has to say about that, Shane. Why is it important for athletes to have a sports performance person in their life?
So, especially with this new generation coming up, we got to teach athletes how to run efficiently, how to change direction efficiently, how to jump efficiently, how to land. When we grew up, we played so many sports, man, that we kind of developed that, right?
Right.
We were out there in the street playing a lot, and we kind of developed those physical qualities and skills on our own. From an injury prevention standpoint, big deal, right? We get so many injuries, so many soft tissue injuries, non-contact injuries nowadays. So we can get an athlete and teach them a great foundation of not only how to move efficiently, how to have good joint range of motion, how to stretch properly, how to hydrate properly, how to recover properly, and how to be able to express power, force through a good program, that doesn't skip steps, that goes phase by phase in a progression.
And that's important. You talk about phase by phase. It's a development process. And I think you really do a great job teaching that there is a process. We have to, it's like building a house. I can't put the roof on first, right? I have to lay the foundation, get a solid base, structural wise, core wise, and then kind of build it from there. And you said this generation's kind of I want it now mentality. So getting them to teach, how do you go about teaching that process to kids?
Well, it depends on the kid that we have in front of us, right? The more they pay attention, the more competitive, the more fun they have, the faster we can get through this phase, right? We don't skip steps, man. You can't go to the next phase until you master the fundamentals, right?
Right.
And like you said, everybody's in a hurry, and we forget about the journey. Like these guys that come here and do great things, they just show up every day and work.
Right.
They're not thinking about, I need to be here. They just show up on a daily, and it's, like some people say, stacking days.
Yep.
Just keep stacking and stacking, and never skip the process.
Yep.
You can't skip it.
Welcome back to Coach Red and Company. Great interview right there with Big Red, Coach Red and Vidal. If you want to see that whole interview, that is on our YouTube channel, right, Coach Red?
Yeah, it'll be up on our YouTube channel. You can also look down in the description below, and we'll give you all the information on how to get a hold of Vidal and how, if you need to do some training, if you're living in South Orlando or think he'd be a good fit for you, how you can reach out to him.
Perfect. A couple things I gathered from that interview, Coach Red, was it when he talked about Spurs performance, and not only he mentioned it, Hunter mentioned it, Trevor mentioned it, about how the kids nowadays aren't getting the basic foundation because they're not getting outside and playing as much as we did. I mean, growing up in a small town, Sioux Center, Iowa, I played every sport known to man in high school, elementary school, middle school. When I got home from school, I mean, we didn't have cable till like, I don't even know what year we got cable, dude. And we got on our bikes. I don't know how it was in the mean streets of Boca when you were there later on, but I know in Orlando when you grew up in Pine Hills, we got on our bikes, we rode around, we found a park. Man, we'd play anything. We'd play baseball with a tennis racket and a tennis ball, and we'd make it work.
Yep.
And he had mentioned how it's a matter of almost teaching kids how to like basically run, jump, move. And me being an elementary PE teacher, I mean, Red, if you came out to my school, you would think I don't have any athletes at all. I mean, it's like we're doing a jump rope unit right now, and there's a lot of kids that can't jump rope. I got a little boy, he loves soccer. He can't barely jump. And I tell him, I said, man, we got to get you jumping rope because that's going to help your footwork so much, and that's going to help you a ton in soccer. And he looked at me like I'm crazy, and I wanted to say, don't worry. Eventually you're going to be on a team, and the first thing you're going to do is say, get the jump rope out, and let's start jumping rope.
Yep.
So it's the fact that, you know, these younger kids, they're inside a lot. They're not outside moving as much. So, but I'll mention, it's literally the foundation, the core of, hey, how do I run? How do I jump? How do I land softly? How do I cut? How do I, you know, how do I get better at agility? So it's just, I mean, hearing that is quite interesting. And I always go back and I don't know, this is probably off topic or a little bit, Red, but I always think like, man, sometimes we as parents, our generation, we should have done a better job. Like we should have done a better job. And I'm not saying you're doing a bad job. I'm not saying I did a bad job. Just like if you look at it in general, like my parents my mom would never let me sit around the house when I was 11 years old on a Saturday. Like, dude, you got to go. Yep. She would almost kick me out of the house. And she put me in everything. And that's what I do with my boys. They'll tell you. And my older son, Shamar, he played everything. At the YMCA, flag football, soccer, baseball, and Little League. He'd be like, Dad, I don't think I want to play baseball. And I'd say, no, you're going to play.
Yeah.
Because I'm making a parent decision. Because I know once he got there, what's going to happen? A week later, he's got 10 new friends.
Yeah.
He's loving playing. And I just like, but me and you are sports people, see? So we understand that. But Johnny that lives around the corner, whose mom and dad aren't sports people, they might think like, oh, he's fine. Right? He don't need to get outside and play. And that's just I think as parents, like, man, we got to do a better job.
You're right. You know, I remember growing up in Pine Hills, you know, over by my grandmother's house, there was a BMX track that's still there at Barnett Park.
Oh, yeah.
I used to take my grandma's bike with the basket on the front and the bell, and I would race it around the BMX track. You know, we'd get 4 or 5 guys. You know, we'd throw the football up, and I'm not going to say the name of that game, but it was basically kill the guy with the ball. You know, and you try to make moves and, names. You know, and juke the guy. And so you're working on that agility. You're working on, you know, explosive stuff. We'd play, you know, baseball basically, or, you know, stick ball in the street. We'd play football in the streets. Cars come, you get out of the way, you go right back into the middle of the street and you played. You know, you're playing basketball wherever you can.
What area is it in Florida, Coach? Is it Pahokee? Where they catch
the rabbits.
They chase the jackrabbits or the white-tailed rabbits. Yep. And those guys are lightning, man. And they never saw a sports performance guy, but that was they were like Rocky Balboa chasing the chicken.
And what it was is it's a big sugar cane
Yep.
industry down there in
Amazing
Belglades
story.
and
Yeah.
the Everglades down there. So once they harvest the sugar cane, they burn all the stalks, and when they do, all the rabbits come running out, and
Yep.
so you would chase them to basically kill them and eat them. I mean, it's
That's
a not
crazy.
it's a low income area, so rabbits is big in the house for meals and protein. So that's what a lot of guys did, and you'll hear. I remember. A lot of guys that went to Florida State, they would talk about the wide receivers or the DBs were so quick and fast, and they would talk about them. Kids riding down the street, and they would take the bunny rabbits and they would tie the ears around the handlebars. So how many.
And just hang them there?
Just hang them as they were riding home. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. So,
you created games. We create different games. I remember my grandparents had lawn darts. Right. And we probably shouldn't have had them, but we would take them in a group. We'd all get together, throw them up in the air and, to see who would stay there the longest. Right. And then we'd take off running. But
love a good lawn dart game.
When you get outside and just play, a group of kids and you don't have a ball or, you kind of create things. So you're problem solving, you're being innovative, you're being creative, getting outside. And I know society today, parents are worried about being outside with kids and, all the crazies that are out in the world. But, if we could do a better job of getting kids, whether it's at a Boys and Girls Club or at the YMCAs, public facilities where we can get more kids out and running, each one of those three guys in the interviews, if you watch all the 100%. Interviews early on in the interview, I asked about why it's important and a little bit more about sports performance, and they all said the same thing. TA talked about how we would build ramps and ride, and we were able to fail, right? We were able to fall down and get back up, and mommy wasn't there to dust us off or pamper us, and you had blood on it, you just wiped it off, threw a little dirt on it, let's keep it moving. Or go get a Band-Aid and come right back outside. And I'm with you. I don't think a lot of people today allow kids to fail, allow kids to get outside and play. So
parents, if saying that, if you want your son or daughter to be an athlete, you want them to be good in sports, let them get outside and play a little bit. If you're afraid, take them to the park, bring your book, read a book while he goes and plays for an hour or 2 hours.
You talked about jumping rope. Hunter talks about it in the interview that they give jump ropes as gift for Christmas. You got kids awesome. In there that 15, 16 years old can't jump rope. I'm like, are you kidding me? We love jump rope. My wife loves doing it. We don't do it enough or often, but that's one thing, we definitely talked about. Shane, when we talk about individuals, when we were coaching basketball, we'd have 12 to 15 players on a team. If I took all 12 or 15 of those guys to a sports performance guy, there's going to be a lot of things that guys can do similar, right? There's a lot of drills that some of these trainers could do with all 10 or 15, but they're going to look at each individual and they're going to evaluate, okay, what does Red do well? What does he not do well? Okay, so let's spend a little bit more emphasis on the things he doesn't do well to get it up, but we're also going to continue to work on the things he does do well. TA talked about coaching the good stuff out of a kid just with a blanket workout program, right? So, I asked TA about that. I said, well, hey, if you take Caitlin Clark and Steph Curry, both great basketball players, both great three-point shooters, how would you train them? And he said, it's different, besides one being female, one being male, their bodies are different, how they work. He said even Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry, great point that he made. Let's take a listen to TA and how he works with different athletes within the same sport and with others. If I have Caitlin Clark and Steph Curry, both great three, how do you train those two to get the best out? You got a female and a male. Yeah. So obviously with your training and your background, you understand the differences. Sure. Because when I bring my daughters to come work for volleyball, right, I want to bring them to a trainer like yourself that understands they load different, their mechanics are different. Women are more, have a greater tendency to blow ACLs, That's right? That's it. So how do you, make workout plans, or how do you, approach that when you work with your students and clients?
That's a great question. First off, the difference between females and males in the sports world is tremendous. It's way more than someone being stronger or weaker or taller or shorter. Both of them clearly are very good basketball players, right? They're the best shooters in their game. But one thing about women, after they reach a certain age, their hips at certain times of the month are wider and narrow. When you start talking about non-contact injuries, there are studies out there for the propensity for non-contact, like ACL injuries and knee injuries, for a female athlete, whether it be a basketball player, volleyball player, soccer player. They skyrocket during certain times of the month because the biomechanics change. And you have to be able to honor every aspect of that when you're dealing with a young female client. You also must know that I can't train everybody the same, even from Steph Curry to Russell Westbrook. I can't train them the same. They're not the same type of an athlete, right? So we have to make sure that we honor not only the individual person, whether they're female or male, but we have to honor the individual person as well. One thing you notice and understand is, like, when you look at two athletes, they may look the same, but you truly have to look at their movement patterns. And the reason why I screen and I'm very deliberate on how I assess an athlete is because I want to find out, what do you instinctively do well already? I don't want to say, okay, here's when you walk in the door, we're going to do these three things, and I could be coaching you straight out of your most valuable instincts. I want to make sure I can identify what it is that you do first. I'm going to see what you do well. I'm going to see where you need to kind of pick it up a notch. And we're going to use the stuff that you have the strengths with to really build it as a foundation. The stuff that you need to work on, we're going to start building that stuff up, whether it be through corrective exercise that we add to our daily routine, or giving you some specific activation and warm-up, dynamic warm-up exercises that are going to help prevent any challenges coming from those deficits. And what I found to be successful is that, I've seen so many athletes and thousands of athletes that the things that used to be the corrective exercise with this younger generation have become the foundational movement patterns that we need for all athletes. So I've turned some of my corrective exercise protocols from 10 years ago into dynamic warm-up and activation routines for all of my athletes, because everybody needs it. So when you're looking at it from athlete to athlete, obviously you have to honor the sport that they're playing, right? I don't want to take a 100-meter sprinter and just run 10 miles with them. Right. I have to be specific to the sport.
Man, what a great interview with TA. Really insightful, even with
Absolutely.
two daughters that play volleyball, a wife who was probably the best athlete in the family when she played basketball at Rollins College.
Probably.
No, she was.
Okay.
Was.
Okay. I didn't want to get in trouble. I'm helping you out. Valentine's Day is right around the corner.
Exactly. Probably still the best athlete in the family. But it was interesting how he talked about, even certain times in the month when young ladies are on their cycle, their bodies change. Their hips get wider, they get narrower, which could lead to more injuries. Young ladies, it's been proven in studies that they are more prone to tearing their ACLs than men are. So, just for him knowing that and to be able to implement different drills and exercises, during his training session, during different times of the month, when young ladies are in there working, and he mentioned, like I said before, even Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook, two great point guards, two different body types, two different
100%.
styles, two different ways to train those guys. And I thought it was really neat, the way he talked about training guys, even though they play the same sport, maybe play the same position, just different because they do different things well.
Absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, you know this, but I didn't know the ACL thing was a huge thing in the women's athleticism.
Yep.
Like I never knew that. So I learned something new right there, which was, like we said, it's always good. It's always, keep educating yourself. So being a woman's sport, knowing that is important. But he talked a little bit, and I like the one thing he really mentioned. He mentioned 70% of a workout is the same stuff usually. And then the 30% gets really, really specific. So he's doing 70%, give or take, of the same things with Russell and Steph. And then he's breaking it down. That last 30% is that's the super important for that specific player.
Right.
And see it in a high school level, you're probably getting 100% the same stuff from your high school trainer.
Right.
If it's your coach, or your assistant coach, you're probably getting 95 to 100% the same stuff.
Yep.
But if you go to that sports performance guy, you're getting that 65, 70, but now you're getting that extra 30 that's tweaked just specifically for you based off of your testing, based off of your body type, based off the sport you're playing. And that all makes a difference. As we know, training for that 30% for basketball is different than that 30% for baseball.
Oh,
It's different than the 30% for volleyball, boy or girl. It's different than the 30% for track and field athletes. And I guarantee it's different than the Vidal training a couple fencers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so that was
Hunter does talk about in his full interview. He talked about when you have guys that know they're great athletes, they may not put in the effort every time on the sports performance side because they're just so good at athletics. So you get a guy that's not as good athletically, that's putting in that time and effort into his sports performance, and his athleticism grows and his ability grows, and he can catch that top tier athlete. He said where the magic happens is when you get that Jalen Carter.
That does it.
It's a beast on the field, and he maximizes every time he walks into that gym. He said that's when you got somebody special, and he, it's like a unicorn. It just doesn't happen. We've seen it with our basketball players, where the best player doesn't always work as hard because he's just that good. And I've always said, listen, if you're not putting in the work, somebody's out there and is going to pass you by. You don't see them. They may be on a different team, different state, but when you meet maybe in college or you meet in the playoffs somewhere, and you're like, oh, well, I used to kill this guy in AAUs. Well, what happened? Now he's up here. Yeah, because he put in the work that you wouldn't.
In saying that, Red, I had some former players, and I'm not going to say any names. We had a former player that was obviously, one of the best athletes in the state of Florida. I mean, it was a given. And we had a coach that this kid would show up late sometimes. And the coach would, he got crazy because we're doing these drills, we're hitting the weight room, and he's mad because this kid is not getting that and stuff, and Johnny's working his tail off. And we had the other assistant coach said, hey, coach, Johnny could be here every day for a year straight, and that other kid is still just way better than him, dude.
Right.
And it was true. Now, that one went on to play college, and things didn't pan out maybe. I'm not saying it was because of work ethic or anything like that, but it could have possibly been, right? Maybe he got to the next level where the athleticism wasn't like this. They were like this now.
Right.
And maybe because we let him coast a little bit in high school, or we've all coached basketball. We know, what's Jimmy Johnson say? Everyone gets treated fairly, but not everyone gets treated the same, so to speak.
Yep.
We've always had that really good kid that you're like, dude, he can be a couple minutes late, maybe. It is kind of what it is. And Red shaking his head because he's really old school.
You asked some Cypress Creek boys if Calvin Henry got treated the same or different than Joe Roy, who was down on the end of the bench. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying Jimmy Johnson said he did it. There's a lot of coaches out there like that. Oh, without a doubt.
Jimmy won a lot of rings. But what I'm saying is, we've seen it, right in our face, and we've been right there and noticed that some of those guys are just better athletes. And you can pick it out from when they're young. And I'm sure when they go in the weight room, the other kid's looking up, knowing that, hey, if I want to get to that level, I got to bring that intensity.
Yep.
And I think, and like you said, Hunter said that one, when you can get that one kid that is just super athletic and he wants to come in and get more athletic, like that's when you like, woo.
Yep.
Sure, as a sports performance trainer, just me being a coach, when I coached that kid, how fun that was.
Yeah.
And I bet as a sports performance trainer, when that unicorn comes in your gym, you're like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yep.
Like, I get to train this kid, and he's going to outwork everyone. This is a good day to be in the gym. Yep. And he just sets the tone for everyone.
Yeah. When your best player or your best athlete is outworking everybody, that sets the level, and I used to tell my guys, listen, my level of expectation is here. I'm not going to drop my level to meet you. You got to come up and meet me. And all three of these trainers in their interviews said the same thing. You know, we're going to hold you accountable for the work that you're expected to do while you're here. You know, your parents are paying good money. We see the potential in you. We know how good you can be. You may not see it in yourself. Your parents may not see it. But as coaches, we see the potential in a lot of players that they don't see in themselves. So, you know, I think you do athletes a disservice by not holding them accountable, by letting things slide here and there. Because once one thing slides, then another, and then it's, you know, and then it's a big mess. So, you know, I think you're right. You know, the one coach that was frustrated, I'm with him. I'm in that camp all day long.
I'm not going to say his name.
You know, so, you know, let's talk, you know, we talk about work ethic and expectation. You know, in the interview with Hunter, he talks about work ethic and expectation. And he also talks about strength and conditioning, you know, in the high schools, you know, and we've touched on it a lot so far in our discussion today. Texas, Georgia, Alabama, and Indiana, Hunter told me, all have certified strength and conditioning coaches in the high schools. And these aren't private schools. These are public high schools. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've never been to a high school in Texas,
you should go. You should go.
There's colleges in this country that don't have the facilities that some of the high schools in Texas have. They have football stadiums that will rival the lower level Division I schools in this country. Better than some Division II schools, artificial 100%. Turf, Jumbotron, suites. It's unbelievable. And college coaches know, all right, especially in football, if I go to Texas, I'm going to get great players. We have phenomenal athletes. And I think a lot of that has to do with the environment that we have here. Kids are able to get out and play more because of the sunshine and the warm weather. So we got a lot of great athletes, but they got some guys in Texas, big linemen, linebackers, you know, tough kids that have facilities that they can go train year round in. And it saddens me being from Florida, born and raised in Orlando, lived in South Florida, like Shane said, for high school, you know, went to college back here in Orlando, coached here in Orlando, was blessed to coach the year at Florida State and a year at a Division II school in North Carolina. So, you know, kind of seen and played in junior college and coached a little bit in junior college. So the levels of workout facilities, the level of weight rooms that were available at those different levels. And we'll get into budgets and coaching money. You know, Orange County Public Schools does a terrible job funding athletics. I'm going to put it out there. Osceola County, terrible job funding athletics. And we'll get into that in another show, but it is what it is. You know, I wish there was a lot more money, coaches' salaries, you know, coach at Edgewater. Phenomenal job. Turned it around, took his team, raised money to go to England to play the NFL Academy over in England, beat them, made it to the playoffs the last few years. He leaves. Take a job in Marietta, Georgia. Why? All because of money.
Big money and pride doesn't even have to teach.
And Coach Darlington, Rick Darlington.
Rick Darlington.
At Apopka. Was there, won a state championship, couple state titles, left to go to Valdosta. You know, and I hear the numbers and, you know, hey, here's a house from the Boosters to live in. You know, I heard numbers up to six figures, and this was 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
You know, but that's what Valdosta, Lowndes County, football is king. Yeah, you know, huge. I think, you know, I don't know if it's God football or football God in Lowndes County, but, you know, it's pretty close. And so the disparity's a whole lot different. And, you know, Hunter touches on that a little bit with the strength and conditioning. So let's take a listen to what he talks about with the work ethic and expectation, the kids that come in his program, and also strength and conditioning in the state of Florida.
How much of a battle is it sometimes, you know, to get kids to, because we see as coaches, we see more potential in kids than they'll see in themselves, or maybe even their parents see in their children. So how hard is it nowadays to get kids to understand that work ethic that they have to put in?
Yeah, no doubt. You know, something that we talk a lot with our staff, especially with younger athletes, is, you know, we have to teach them how to work, right? And so a lot of that to me is the standards that we're going to place on them, right? I'm a believer that kids are going to rise and fall to the expectations that we put on them and the standards that we put on them. And so for us and our staff is we want to put very high expectations on each athlete that walks through our doors. We want to put very high standards on them. And then our job as coaches is to make sure that they're holding the line, so to speak, and that we're teaching them what it looks like to finish a drill, what it looks like to follow instructions, be coachable, what it looks like to train through discomfort, right? And they have to learn. I know what that is. Sometimes they have to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And that is something that can be taught and can be learned, and that doesn't mean that we just have to beat them down into the ground. It has to be the hardest workout ever, right? But we have to set the standards for our athletes and make sure that they're reaching them. And then as coaches, we have to make sure that we're the consistent ones, right? Kids are going to be inconsistent. Right, it's just the nature of the beast. Like you said, they got other things going on outside of here. Maybe it's a day they don't really want to come, right? They're down or whatever it may be. Our job as coaches is for us to be consistent, right? And understand that, these are the standards that we're putting on you. This is what is expected from a work ethic and being a coachability type thing. And our job is to hold them accountable to that each time that they come in. And then eventually it becomes a learned habit for them after a while. It is to hold them accountable to that each time that they come in. And then eventually it becomes a learned habit for them after a while.
So how is over the years, how has sports performance changed high schools? Because, our show is geared, for all things high school athletics. So, we want to look at that, but it's also changed at the college and even the pro levels. But just talk about the high school level. How has sports performance changed high schools over the last decade or so?
Yeah, I think it's given the high school athlete an opportunity to get high level performance training. Having worked with many high schools, especially here in Florida, strength conditioning isn't a big thing in the high school level. Other states you can go to, they have qualified high school strength conditioning coaches that are on staff. There's some guys doing some amazing work at the high school level in other states, and that's what their job is. They're the strength conditioning coach. I think what you find here in Florida specifically, a lot of times is kind of like the old school way of like the high school coach is going to run the strength program, right? Right, wrong, and different. Their main thing is coaching the sport. They're not studying, like you talked about, they're not studying the strength conditioning side of things. They're watching film, they're doing all the things of that nature. And so the high school strength program a lot of times, and it's no slight to the coaches, just kind of leaves a lot to be desired from being cutting edge and on where it should be, just because they don't have the time to do it. And so with facilities like ours, it gives a high school athlete a chance to come in and get tested, get metrics, right? Be around a high-level performance area so that, again, maximizes their potential, right? Maximizes their ability, gives them a chance to be successful on the field or court or whatever sport they're in, and then also prepares them for the collegiate level strength conditioning program where they can step in with the opportunity to make an impact early.
Great stuff, guys, from Coach Hunter Wood. Shane, talk to me about what you heard or what you thought of Hunter saying.
Well, a couple things Hunter was speaking about with the high schools. Obviously, me and you used to coach in the public school. I had a son that went to the private school sector for a little bit. So being in the private school sector, he went to a well-known school in the area, and their weight room facility was top of the line. They had trainers that definitely knew what they were doing in the weight room and worked well. But usually in the public school, like you said, that trainer, that strength and conditioning coach is probably some sort of teacher where they're getting, that's their real money. The little money we do get paid as teachers, and I'm a teacher and Red used to be, so he knows. And the money they're getting paid to supplement, let's be honest, they're doing it because they love working with kids. We know that. Like nobody does coaching or that any type of thing in Orange County or even in Florida at a public school for the money. But Hunter mentioned how they work with the high school guys. Like when the high school guy comes in on a Monday night after a workout at a Popka or Dr. Phillips or whatever. They were checking to find out what they did.
Right.
So they can supplement that workout.
Right.
Not necessarily do something that's going to cause that, the high school workout. They want to add on to that level. So as a high school strength and performance guy, like that's just extra for them, because now they know that when the kid leaves here, he's going to a strength and performance coach who's just adding on to what we're building. And it's kind of like, I don't even know a better way to even say it. I don't know, like in Jenga, where you take the one and you put it on top, and pretty soon you got the big tower.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You always say in the videos, the interviews, you talk about stacking on top of each other. So it was very interesting to hear Hunter mention how he works with the high schools. I think some high school guys might get a little worried about that.
Right.
Like they might be worried about them going to a skills trainer, or still like, oh, is he doing something that's going to hurt the kid? These sports and performance guys, number one, they're out to help your kid. Like, we know that. And number two, I hate to say it the way it is, but it's their living. Like, that's what they do for a job.
Yep.
If you hurt my son, I'm calling Red and I'm letting him know, hey, don't go to this guy.
Sure.
Let's be honest. Red reached out to me years ago. Hey, where's Jaden go to work out? I said, he works out with Trevor Anderson. Oh, I know Trevor. Where at? Next thing you know, guess whose daughter was working out at TA's with my son and a couple other boys. Based off of, I told him, hey, the guy does a great job.
Yep.
But if I would have told him, oh, we went there once, twice, you know what? The guy didn't care at all. He was drilling him and, whatever. It's a bad look. So I think the adding on, I think the high school guys kind of worrying about that maybe is the wrong way to look at it. Like, they should be looking at they're getting the extra tutoring. Like, the math teacher would never be mad if Red got extra tutoring.
Correct.
They'd love you, Red. They'd be like, Red getting extra tutoring.
And I think a lot of coaches understand, especially with like Hunter up in that area. Rick Darlington knew him because he was also his strength guy for a while.
Yeah.
But you're right. This is their livelihood. So they live and feed their families and pay their bills off the tuition that these kids are paying. So word of mouth is the greatest form of advertising. So you're right. You gave me a great recommendation for TA. I had known TA, so that just solidified the deal. But I think, high school coaches only have so much time to work, and in the 2.5 to 3 hour practice at the most guys do a day, you can only put so much content into that 3 hours. And a lot of times it's the X's and O's of playing your sport, kind of some individual drills with the position player guys. You don't have time to help linemen with their footwork, right? You don't have time unless it's, a couple minutes at the beginning, like we used to do in basketball practice, just kind of get the blood flowing and work a little bit. So, if I know my lineman or my wide receiver, they're going to get skill specific or sports specific performance training, I'm all in, and I love what Hunter talked about. And how they check on their kids. They want to know, okay, well, did you have 3 games this week? And, basketball or volleyball, as opposed to 1 a week in football, are the workouts you're going to so demanding that, your performance and your levels that you should be at every time you come into the studio or the gym, you should be at a certain level. Well, if you dip one time, okay, well, we got to figure it out, right? Are we going too hard? And Hunter mentioned, you do squats, cleans in a weight room for football anyway. Okay, great. I don't need to work.
Yeah, we don't need to do
There's a million other things. He says in his there's a million other things that I can work on to get you better at what we're doing. So, sports performance, if you're not doing
Red,
it, you're way behind, ladies and gentlemen.
And to be honest with you, here's a story. Episode 2, we had Jeff Perez from Lake Mary Baseball on, right? 2 years ago, Jeff Perez hired Ben De La Cruz to come out to Lake Mary, and he did like a 6-week program for his whole baseball team. And he told me, he said, Shane, it wasn't cheap. But you know what? He knew that Ben knew more than he knew or any strength guy at Lake Mary knew.
Right.
And he knew he had a really good baseball team that year. And he said, hey, this training right here could put us over the top. And I mean, they didn't win states, but they were very, very good. Like they won some playoff games. They were in a chance to win it, but in baseball, it comes down to pitching a lot, and it's just the way it is. But he spent that extra money, and he didn't look at Ben as like an outsider. He looked at him like, dude, that's adding to my team. Like, this is some important information, important aspect that I can add. So he just brought him in, raised the money, and paid for it.
Yep. And so, kind of to wrap it all up, guys, when I was doing my interview with Hunter, my chair was actually facing Hunter's office. He got a big piece of glass in the door that looks from his office into the gym. So if he's in there, he can always monitor what's going on with his other trainers. And I see this mountain of a young man come walking through the door in his navy blue sweatsuit with a big, beautiful, probably one of the, as Rudy's dad said, it's the most beautiful thing these eyes have ever seen. That Carolina blue NC on this guy's chest. So I'm like, holy cow, this is a Carolina football guy. So, said something to Hunter. He's like, it's Will Barnes, played at Apopka, was an Army All-American, big poster on the wall in the gym. So I asked if we could talk to him. And, it was great just to kind of get that validation. I hear it from 3 different trainers, all the importance of it. And I wanted to hear from somebody who lived it for a few years while he was in high school, how much better it made him. And, you'll listen to that interview. We're going to do that interview in its entirety. It's only about 4.5 minutes, and then we'll come back and wrap this thing up. So here's Will Barnes.
I'm super excited. Saw the young man through the glass door, had that beautiful Carolina blue and that NC on his chest. So I asked Coach Hunter Woods if we can talk to this gentleman. This is Will Barnes from Apopka High School. Got a big poster up on the wall, All-American in high school, just finished up at the North Carolina University of North Carolina, and getting ready to do some training and head to the CFL. Will, thanks for joining us, big fella. Appreciate it. Talk a little bit about sports performance. How did it help you as a high school athlete?
Well, first and foremost, it's just like going through the process of just like working here was like fantastic. Definitely a great work for someone like going through high school, because we have great coaches in high school, but you kind of feel like you want to get some more work in.
Right.
And so Coach Hunter Wood, he was the next best thing. The first time I came here and started working with him, I knew for sure this was a different spot to be working at, and that he was going to get me to exactly where I needed to be when I headed up to college. Because I knew like after training with him and going through the process and finally being my first time on freshman campus, North Carolina, big school, I was able to like go through the workouts and be accustomed to it, because I had worked all the way through with Coach Wood. He's gotten me right through, ever since then.
So made that transition a little bit easier for you.
Correct,
going to that level. Now, O-line, correct? Back in the day, they were just big dudes.
Yeah.
Now, these cats, 6'4", 6'5", 310, 320, athletes can move. Do you think, being here and working and doing, working with sports performance training helped your athleticism as an O-line guy?
100%. Everything that we do here, it kind of gets you exactly where you need to be with like the ladder drills that we have, cone drills, feet work. Feet work I feel like is important to Coach Wood, and I feel like that's important for an O-lineman as well.
Without a doubt.
Which I'm sure.
Without a doubt.
So definitely like working through here, definitely my feet work has improved way more, because like going through a little bit through high school, I played basketball a little bit too.
Right.
So coming to Coach Wood definitely helped out with that, making my feet work just as faster. So everything here that I've worked through has definitely helped me improve.
When I was at Florida State, we had a kid come from Edgewater High School, 6'9", 429 pounds. Right? Never played football. Mom was worried that he would get hurt. And I'm like, oh, man, have you seen your son? But he could go through this speed ladder. I mean, unbelievable footwork. And for big guys, whether it's O-line or in basketball, you got to be able to move your feet, get in position, get a good base, so I think that's definitely important. Plus, girls love big dudes that can dance, man. You know what I'm saying? So, what kind of sports performance did you have at the college level? Was it similar to, what Coach Hunter and his staff provided? Was it a little bit easier? I mean, talk about that a little bit.
I feel like finally going into transitioning into the college workout regimen, it was a lot easier for me, especially from coming from here, because Coach Wood wants the best out of you. He's going to get the work in that you need. So going up there, definitely I felt like accustomed to like workouts, because like first day on campus, I'm moving weight that, some of the seniors are moving.
Right.
And so like I still have a video of like when they recorded me, I think I squatted about like almost 600 pounds, like on my first like through fall camp working there.
Right.
So that really impressed them a lot. So and I can't say that I would have gotten to do that if I hadn't worked with Coach Wood in sports performance. So definitely just working through here is going to get you where you need to be.
Right. Well, wonderful. Hey, big fella, I appreciate you. Good luck in the CFL. Maybe we'll see you, in the NFL in a couple of years, work your way up. And, that'd be great. I know that, Apopka's got a long history of great football players. And, you're just another one. And, man, hey, it's good to see somebody in that Carolina blue, baby. Yes, I appreciate it. So thank you very much, Will. And good luck to you, big fella.
Yes, sir. Thank you very
much. All right.
All right, everybody. As you can see, Will Barnes definitely benefited from his time with Hunter Wood. I loved the part where he says, when I walked on campus as a freshman and I was pushing similar weight to the seniors. Now, seniors probably, anywhere from 4 to 5 years, depending on that COVID year that a lot of guys got, or a medical redshirt year, or just a regular redshirt year for them to get bigger, faster, stronger, right? So, for a guy to come in who's been through sports performance, who's lifted a lot of weights, I think he said he squatted 600 and some pounds, when he came on as a freshman. I don't think I've lifted 600 pounds total in 56 years of doing anything in a gym, if you combined all my weight. But it was great to see. He talked about his footwork with the ladder drills and the cones and the speed work, and I mentioned it to him, 20, 30 years ago, offensive linemen were, those are the big fat guys on the team. These guys are studs. I mean, 6'5", 320, 330 pounds that move like gazelles, running 4.7, 4.8 40s in the combine. These men have obviously gone through a lot of training. Yes, they are blessed to have natural athletic ability, but I'm sure a lot of these guys have been to sports performance. Will definitely talked about the benefits of it and how it helped him in his footwork. We talked earlier in the show about Nigel Dixon at Florida State and the footwork that he had going through the ladders and the drills that we used to do with him. So it was great to hear, somebody that's been through it, played football at the highest level, and now looking to go professionally up in Canada. And hopefully, only 22, he'll get some reps up there, get some playing time, maybe get on a NFL scout team, and then hopefully make it to big show with some of these guys. So Shane, what'd you think of Will?
Yeah, it was great to hear from a client, right? Like we heard from 3 guys. That's, it's like hearing from 3 real estate guys. Like, okay, you're telling me what you want to hear. Let me hear from a guy that actually bought from you.
Yeah.
Or somebody you sold for, right? And Will validated that, he came in ready to go. And I can validate the same thing. When I talked to my son's trainer his senior year, I said, Ben, what do you think? Is he ready for college? And he goes, dude, he athletically, strength-wise, he's ready. Like the other stuff, he can't, the other stuff, I don't know because that's not his forte. But as far as like the athletic part, he's ready to go. And for Will to say, hey, he walked in the gym or in the weight room and was matching guys that had been there 2 or 3 years, 4 years, whatever. That's impressive. And that says a lot for, for Hunter out there doing his thing. And all the interviews, it always talked about those guys. All of them said they're teachers first, like they teach. And you need to find someone that's going to motivate your son or daughter to do the hard work needed. And it could be it's going to be some sort of relationship that they build with that coach. 20 years ago, where there might have been one guy in South Orlando, there's multiple guys that are close to your house. And there's guys everywhere in Orlando. So if you're looking for a sports performance trainer, we just mentioned 3. We just had 3 great ones on. Ben De La Cruz, I couldn't tell you. You can look him up. Used to be OPTC. I think he's changed names a couple of times. He's awesome. But do your due diligence. Make sure that your son or daughter can relate to that coach. Make sure they're the ones that are going to push him or her to get to that level you want to do, because it's going to cost you some cash. It ain't going to be free.
Right.
And you want to get the most out of it. Just like,
I think with these 3 guys and my daughters being at all 3 of these guys, I've never heard any one of them raise their voice and scream and yell. They're going to push you in a way that's, I don't want to say fan friendly, but it's going to be in a way where kids will respond to that. Now, sometimes I used to tell, hey, get my daughter's butt. She's got it.
Yeah, I know you did.
But each one of them got great personalities. They all work differently. They're not going to let your child slack, but they're not going to bully your child either. And I love each one of those guys. They were phenomenal. We'll have ways in the description to get a hold of all three of them. If you watch all three videos at the end, I asked the same question: how can we get a hold of you? And they tell you their Instagram page or Facebook page, email addresses, and so on. So just wanted to wrap this thing up. Sports performance is a key for athletes today because there's so many kids doing it. It's helped so many. And to take your child's ability to the next level and help prepare them for college, I'm going to tell you, it is a necessity to have your child with some type of sports performance trainer at least twice a week, helping them. Some will tell you 2 to 3 maximum. Like Shane said, this is the way they make a living, but they're not greedy people. They're not going to say, yeah, you have to be here 5-6 days a week. So get out there, get into it. Again, on our videos on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel on all the podcast platforms. Like, subscribe, share, get the word out, let everybody know. Hopefully we're providing some quality content for you guys. We got a lot of different topics. Next week, we're going to be talking about NCAA requirements for athletes to go to Division I and Division II. Hopefully we may have a little update from some of my junior college contacts of what's going on with the junior college. And, we'll let you know how and what you need to do to get your child prepared for Division I and Division II academically to prepare them to go to college. Get with a sports performance trainer. He'll help you athletically. But we're going to talk next week about what it takes to get into college academically. But thank you guys for Coach Shane. For Coach Shane, I'm Coach Red. Coach Red and Company, an inside look at high school athletics.
This has been Coach Red and Company, the premier podcast that takes an inside look at high school athletics like you've never heard before. Touchdown! Both Red and Shane are veteran coaches, and their passion is high school sports and going beyond just the X's and O's. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube at Coach Red and Company. Email us at coachredandcompany@gmail.com.